Greetings, Earthlings, and humans, and others, whatever you got. I'm glad you're here. Especially animals, the highest form of intelligence on this planet as far as I'm concerned, because animals, unlike humans, don't need to bullshit themselves in order to feel the joy of living. So that's much higher than humans. Welcome to the Roseanne Barr Podcast.
Oh, you see, my patience is growing thin.
Oh boy, have we got a banger of a show today. It's going to be a barn burner of a banger of a show today, I think. You know how I love to speak with geniuses, and I have them all the time, but this one is a great one. A genius filmmaker and a unique voice in America, carrying on in the tradition of the forefathers of America, a great American, a great artist, and a for sure genius. Dinesh D'Souza. Hi, Dinesh.
Roseanne, it's such a pleasure to be back. I think we last did this for Police State a few years ago.
Great movie.
And boy, isn't it good that we got through all that, although not unscathed, I guess. And we're in a bit of a new era. So this new film is a film for today, for these times.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about the film in a minute, but, The Dragon's Prophecy, right?
Heck of a title, I must say.
Yeah, and we just had Jonathan Cahn on our last
Right.
show, so, we talked about it with him, and then you've made a movie about it.
Right. Debbie and I, my wife, we went to Israel in December of 22, and we discovered, we fell in love with Israel and the people. I felt like I was in the land of the Bible, which is unusual these days because you can go to places, you go to Rome, you go to Stockholm, you go to Copenhagen. Those places have all become homogenized. They all look kind of the same. But Jerusalem is still Jerusalem. There's still the resonance of biblical times. So in any event, we discover biblical archaeology. I've been writing about Christian history and apologetics for 2 decades, but much of that stuff I didn't know. And some of it has come out of the ground in recent years.
Yeah.
I mean, in the last decade. So I was like mesmerized by all that. And then, of course, 9 months later, October 7th, and I realized that's a epical event. And so I was trying to connect these two things together, and I realized they are connected in the sense that ultimately this is an argument over whose land is it. And one way you answer that question is you ask, who are the original inhabitants of this place? So biblical archaeology, October 7th, there is a nexus, there is a link. And then along marches in Jonathan Cahn, who publishes a book called The Dragon's Prophecy, and he made an observation that blew me away, which is that he said, look, what's going on here is like a biblical event, and that the battles between Israel and Hamas are a kind of echo, he calls it a resurrection, of ancient battles between the Israelites and, of course, there were the Moabites, there were the Hittites, but notably the most persistent of the enemies of ancient Israel, the Philistines.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just claim this, and he doesn't just hang it on the word Philistine, Palestine, which is the same word. He goes into it with a rigor and a detail that I was like, I don't think people have heard this.
They
I think
haven't.
I can pull this tapestry together into a film, and so that's what we did.
Yeah, he takes it all the way back to source, doesn't he?
Well, I love the example of Samson, where, Samson is the biblical hero. He represents the strength of Israel. And he's captured by, guess who, the Philistines. And the Philistines blind him in much the same way that Israel is blinded in October 7th. And what did the Philistines do? The Bible says they dragged him to Gaza. Now, that area, the Gaza Strip, what we call the Gaza Strip today, was Philistia. But in Philistia, the land of the Philistines, there were 5 cities, notably Gaza. And so Samson ends up in Gaza, and then, this is the crusher, it says the people of Gaza demanded that he be stripped and that he be brought out for their entertainment. What a key word. And then I remembered October 7th, October 8th. This is exactly what happens in Gaza. They bring out hostages. They're stripped. People are dancing with joy. Allahu Akbar. And so what Khan is saying is that when you look at this through the lens of the Bible, it takes on a much wider and even a spiritual significance. That's what I think I found really profound. And, I have to say, Roseanne, obviously, none of us could have anticipated Charlie Kirk's assassination. People are talking now about like a spirit of not just political and cultural, but spiritual renewal. And I want this film to be a part of that.
Well, then we have talked about Charlie Kirk, right?
We should talk about Charlie Kirk. I think that's another epical event of
It
its
is.
own.
It definitely is.
And I remember just the eerie feeling. Debbie and I were right 5 rows from the front in the funeral, and just hearing these, one after the other cabinet ministers talking about God. And I mean, I've never heard anything like that in American politics. And I was a young guy in the Reagan White House. Reagan would refer to God once or twice. He'd talk about the man upstairs, but it was in this whimsical, generic tone. Here it was very clear. You're talking about people with very passionate conviction about returning to the principles of the Bible.
Were you at all, what's the word, Jake? Were you at all alarmed by any of it?
Well, I was alarmed. You mean alarmed by the speeches or alarmed by the event, by Charlie's assassination?
Yeah, by the event for,
The memorial?
yeah, kind of, because something was alarming to me about it. And, I mean, it's one thing if the president and his cabinet were talking about a return to God and all that stuff that included all Americans, including Jewish Americans and, Buddhist Americans and all like religious groups in America, because it's supposed to be a big tent, right?
Right.
But it seemed like it was only one group of Americans they were talking to. And then when they capped it off with Goebbels, I mean Tucker Carlson, it was like, oh, how do you expect to keep a big tent when you're doing crap like that? And it was very alarming to me, like, what are they doing to MAGA? Are they turning this into a Christian nationalist movement? Because really, I don't want any part of that. I don't want any part of a church and state, of something with no separation between church and state, where there is a one religion sanctified by the government. That's not America as I remember.
No, I mean, I agree with this completely. I do think I wasn't bothered by it for this reason. I saw it not so much as a governmental event, but as a Charlie event that was a resonance of Charlie himself. In other words, it's a private event. Here's a guy, this is his funeral, really, except it was a funeral with 100,000 people, which is not going to be your funeral or mine, I don't think. And so I think everybody got in the spirit of that. Now, weirdly, and my wife will corroborate this, I get up, march off to the bathroom, which going to the bathroom in that kind of rally is like a 30-minute process.
Oh, yeah, at
I come
least.
back and like Tucker is in the middle of his speech. I missed the key part, but then, of course, the day after, I see all the commentary and so on. And, I do think that there's something very bad going on here. I've known Tucker, not well, but off and on for 30 years. In fact, when Tucker started out, he worked for a magazine, and I was the managing editor of it. He came in as like an intern, but I left almost immediately after he came to go to the White House. So I met him, I knew him a little bit, and we've stayed in touch over the years. Last year, Tucker and I did a speaking tour in Australia together. We spoke in like 8 cities and was like put on by this Australian billionaire. And he was perfectly cordial. None of this came up at all. We're talking about COVID, police state. We're talking about political targeting. We're talking about globalism. But then suddenly this eruption, all in recent months, and it's put me in a very awkward position because I've been reluctant to call him out. He's someone I've known, and it also makes it look like our side is fighting. And yet, I don't see how one can ignore these trends because they have the potential, in my view. They're spiritually corrosive. They're politically divisive inside of the Republican Party. They have the potential of destroying the MAGA movement.
Yes, that's what I think.
And they have the potential of doing a lot of harm to the country in general. So for all of that, the stakes are a lot bigger than Tucker. And this phenomenon has to be addressed, and I plan to be part of that.
Yeah, me too. It's like, well, Tucker was, we were talking before about, and I don't know if you want to go into it, you don't have to if you don't want to, but Tucker was kind of brought in, and he's like the, and has been for a long time, Candace, Nick Fuentes, they are kind of a cudgel against MAGA, and the growing numbers of disaffected youth that are following all that. It's MK Ultra.
So Ma, Josh, my brother-in-law, for you guys don't know, you've been calling him at republiclifenow.com. He sells life insurance, he sells health insurance, he sells all the insurances.
He's busy.
He's busy, but
getting his third kid too.
I know, and his crazy wife, who's my crazy sister-in-law. So me and Josh are in the trenches every day with our kid. But we've been talking about this life insurance policy that he does, that you can actually get your life insurance while you're still alive, which is amazing. People are going crazy for it, but I want to say you got to get this now. You got to get this while you're healthy. It's not something you can come in at 80 years old and just get on. And you also have to have a qualifying life event. So I just want to be really clear. So
qualifying what?
Life event, meaning like you have to, get sick. You can't just go, here's my life insurance, I'm cashing it, I'm going to Vegas.
You want to be able to access when you need it.
When you need it. So it's still a life insurance policy that's going to be left to your family if you die, but let's say you get terminal illness and you need life-saving medical equipment. You can pull from that for that. You can't just
That's
go to
really
Monaco.
great.
It's awesome. So it's an amazing product, but I just want to be really clear because a lot of people are calling in and they're like, yeah, I want to want some money.
I want to go to Europe.
Yeah. But it's an amazing product. And again, you got to do life insurance regardless if you do this. You've got to protect your family. This is just an extra added bonus that if a qualifying life event happens, you can do it. So call Josh at republiclifenow.com. I'll let you tell the people where to go. I just did, but I'll let you do it anyway.
Call Josh by going to republiclifenow.com and tell him to make me a steak. To subtly be what's the word?
Inferring?
No, when they're trying to subtly seduced into a subtly being Islamicized. That's what I see, which is like the UN Agenda 30's one world religion, which is Chrislam. So they're being Chrislamicized. And Chrislam is the, one world religion that big money, big power likes, because it's also, though, horrifically, the destruction of Christianity, the teachings of Jesus, and Judaism. And it's like a whole new thing, pioneered in Jeremiah Wright's church, where, they just are making up a whole new thing, where American youth subtly being seduced into wanted to bring many more Dearborns here, and ultimately a caliphate. And that's how I see it. And it has paid ops that continually blame Israel, our ally of 30 years, and this country that we get our intelligence about the Middle East from, whether, and of course it has rogue bad people in it too, just like our CIA does. But ultimately, that's where we get, our intelligence for around the world. And, they're on the wrong side. And I think that it is the destruction of America's soul. And I'm horrified by it. And it just...
there's so many dimensions to this. First of all, the case for Israel is a biblical case. It is a moral case, by which I mean it's the root of Western civilization, Athens and Jerusalem. There's a practical case. When I've debated this issue, I start with the practical case. I basically go, look, we give $3.8 billion to Israel. Frankly, much of that ends up in the pockets of the defense contractors.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I don't know a better return on investment than that pittance of a money. We give money all over the world and people twiddle their thumbs or they turn around and insult us, give us the middle finger. with Israel, we have a country on the front line that actually knows how to fight radical Islam and is doing it.
Yeah.
America, I have to say, just based upon close spectatorial experience of the last 25 years, we do not know how to fight radical Islam.
At all.
At all. We start out with Jimmy Carter. He pulls the Persian rug out from under the Shah. Whoops, we get Khomeini.
Yeah.
That's how radical Islam gets a major state.
America started it.
Yeah. Then after 9/11, we go over there with big, pomp and circumstance, shock and awe. Boom, the Taliban is out of Afghanistan, but guess what? They're back. So you can't say we won that long term. And then, of course, Iraq is a big mess we don't have to go into. So we don't know what we're doing. And for $3.8 billion, you've got these, like, super sleuths on the ground, They got pagers. Hello, Abdul, are we ready for our next attack? Kaboom. I mean, this is genius. I mean, I wish I thought of it.
Yeah.
If our CIA did it, I would be beyond shocked because they don't know how to do it. So Israel's doing it. And then you have this cabal of people in this country who basically point the finger at Israel and go, you're the problem. It's downright insanity. Because I think in the real world, you don't get to choose between the good guy and the bad guy. You're choosing between what's out there. And the choice right now is basically it's either Israel or it's radical Islam. And let's look at it from the radical Muslim point of view. They're the little Satan. We're the great Satan. So they actually understand how this all stacks up.
Oh, they get it totally.
They get it totally.
But we don't. And I mean, I was just looking at the internet. I'm like, my God, they have totally censored any kind of sane opinion about what's really going on in the Middle East, specifically Israel, what Israel's doing. They have censored anything sane about Israel on almost all fronts, on YouTube, on BitChute. It's all just puked anti-Semitism everywhere. And I mean, they've won, and they've targeted the minds of the youth, and they're all going to be listening to Candace and Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson. And I imagine Charlie Kirk was really bothered by that. I imagine he felt, they say, he felt pressured by Israel, but he didn't have a lot of Jewish donors at all. And I think that he was feeling pressured by those people's rising numbers.
Charlie's donors are, look, in any organization that is a youth organization, you have a constituency, which is young people, and you're going to get money from older people. So the older people are going to represent the mainstream of the Republican Party, which is pro-Israel. This may have a subset of Jews in it, but it's not primarily Jews.
Right.
It's basically rich people of an older generation who believe in the Reaganite tradition that Israel is our best ally. So yes, it's not the first time in the history of nonprofits that you got, a guy navigating between a younger constituency that's, as you say, being kind of seduced or tempted away to an anti-Israel position, and then his money is coming from basically pro-Israel people. That's not going to get him assassinated. That's actually normal. When I was at AEI, you'd have all these corporations that were giving us money, all right? And then the AEI economists, who are free market guys, would say, listen, we're against government bailouts. We're against any kind of subsidies. And all these companies would be like, wait a minute, we want subsidies for us.
Right.
And so tension between, our free market constituency, that's why we exist, and of course the donors who are corporate and generally support free markets, but on the other hand, if they can get something from the government, they're only too happy to take advantage of it. So I think this was Charlie's predicament. But to go from that, which is a completely normal situation that he was trying to navigate, to somehow, take a look at this picture, guys. Here is a pipe that can be seen in the video of Charlie's assassination. I think there was like a Mossad guy who came out of that pipe. That was the real shooter. I mean, this kind of stuff is so idiotic and bad for our side, and so it's hard for me to believe.
But aren't there donors that pulled out because of Tucker Carlson before the assassination of Charlie?
Of course. I mean, I was telling you just before we got started that I know one of them, probably Charlie's largest donor, and this is a guy who had sort of had it. And I think what it was is that at the beginning he saw that, look, Tucker's got a big following. A lot of Tucker's admirers became admirers not because of the anti-Semitism, not because of his view of Israel. They were admirers when he was on Fox News.
Yes,
they supported him when he
absolutely.
got fired. He was the ultimate poster boy of political incorrectness.
Yeah.
This was the appeal of Tucker.
Well, that's why we all liked him.
That's why we all like
Me
Tucker.
too. You did a tour with him
I did.
not too long ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, Charlie had a donor problem prior to all that, and
Because a lot of his donors did not like Tucker Carlson.
well, they also didn't like the degree of prominence. Like they noticed that even after all this, even after Charlie had heard from 30 people or 100 people, this is a problem. Like, who's the keynote speaker at their upcoming December conference? Tucker Carlson, who was right up there at the funeral. I mean, it's not easy to get that speaking slot. Tucker Carlson. So I think this is symbolic of a problem in the Republican Party.
I do too.
And one that has to be taken head on. Now, I think the problem with it a little bit is this, and that is that Tucker is the man who, quote, asks questions, right? That's how he says, I'm not taking a position. I'm only asking questions. Candace takes I would call it, and all of this is slightly comedic, but in a dark way. She's always conducting a personal investigation. She's like, I've got my journalists. I want to recruit you, my audience, to be journalists. Send me videos. We're going to get to the truth of the matter. Citizen journalism. Now, all of this has a kind of respectable patina.
Veneer.
It's a veneer because, first of all, this journalism never produces anything. It never actually comes to a conclusion. It actually never produces an incontestable fact where all of us can look at it and go, you know what? That is obviously true. We didn't know that before. We need to revise our previous understanding. It's never like that. It's always some extremely wacky theory that never goes anywhere and is replaced by another even more wacky theory. So this is the surreal world we are moving into. And I'm all for asking questions.
Me too.
In a way, it embarrasses me because
I want to do a citizen inquiry into the one thing Candace will never do, and that's the Catholic Church and its horrible record on child molestation and trafficking. Candace ought to look into that. Boy, that'd get her a lot more viewers. But I plan to do that, and why she apologizes for all that and hides it.
Well, the other thing about the church that has been very disturbing is the way in which, the Catholic Church was hit with a lot of lawsuits. They, I think, were facing in certain areas major bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But then they discovered almost like a business, like another source of revenue, illegals, right?
Right,
Because
exactly.
if you can set up shop on the border as
Exactly.
a group that navigates these massive caravans that come 2,000 miles and arrive at the
Catholic
U.S.
Charities
border.
brought 'em over.
Catholic Charities basically became like an unbelievably lucrative revenue operation, and funded, by the way, not just funded by U.S. taxpayers indirectly, funded by NGOs, funded by international organizations.
USAID.
All of this stuff. And so this is the backdrop of all that. But let me put it this way. When I started my career, I was myself like a young Charlie Kirk, right? I was speaking on campuses. My first book was called Illiberal Education.
Right.
And so I lived that life of 3 days, 4 days a week, going from one campus to the other, often flying cross country. Of course, it was a different era. I never had to worry. Don't think I genuinely worried about getting shot. At the most, I thought some guy will rush the stage and be intercepted by some overweight campus policeman. It's going to be okay. I'll live through it. But I've tried to be an iconoclast asking questions, but you have to ask questions in the right way, and you have to do it seeking truth. You're not asking questions to poison the well.
That's right.
And so when you have a guy who's asking questions like this, all right, well, I just wonder whether we might have been better to ally with, Hitler in World War II against Stalin. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Our
Our grandfathers died fighting Hitler.
Right.
Dr.
And then, of course, you'll hear something like, well, I'm not the only guy who's saying that. Patton said that. No, Patton didn't say that. After the war, Patton said, having won the war and vanquished the Nazis, maybe we're going to have to deal with the Soviet Union now, and maybe we should march all our way to Moscow. That's a whole different thing. And so, but for young people who are amnesiac and don't know the nuances of all this, they go, oh, well, Patton said it really. So I think that this kind of asking of questions is not, as it needs to be, a search for truth and genuine debate.
No, you said it. It's poisoning the well.
It's poisoning the well. It's poisoning the well. And on so many different counts. The other thing that's going on, you've heard about this, is this whole notion, and here I'm going to go a little bit into the sort of into Christianity a little bit, replacement theology.
Oh, it is replacement theology.
So
Jeremiah Wright, the whole leftist thing, all the way.
Right. Now I just want to state
KGB, Color Revolution, it's all the same.
But let's look at it for how this replacement theology is, just from the Christian point of view, extremely heretical and destructive.
Absolutely.
Because, and I'm not coming at it from the point of view of like a Protestant dispensationalist. No, I mean, I see myself in the C.S. Lewis mode as like what he calls mere Christianity, which is the very mainstream, the basics of Christianity going back 2,000 years. And so in the mainstream of Christianity, we learn that the New Testament is in the Old concealed, and the Old Testament is in the New revealed. In other words, the Old Testament and the New, the Hebrew Scriptures and the Christian Scriptures are joined at the hip.
How much time do you spend every day on a web browser? How much time do you spend clicking around online, searching, scrolling, typing endless tabs? It's a lot, right? Well, okay, there's a new AI web browser from Perplexity called Comet. It is completely changing the way you're able to interact with your browser. Using Comet feels like having a personal assistant living in your web browser that can actually do stuff for you across the internet. Yeah, do stuff, not just give you answers. Because it's a web browser, Comet can use all the accounts you're already logged into to take action across the web.
Yeah, this thing is, so AI scares the crap out of me, right? Like the track and trace program. This is not
Yeah,
that.
we don't like that.
No, this is AI, what it should do, where it's not satanic, where it actually does tasks for you in the background. It's an assistant that lives in your computer, and it's pretty crazy. So you just go on this browser and you type stuff up, your browser turns blue and goes, and it does everything. My friend...
Well, what it does is compile and synthesize information.
It's, you give it a directive, and it uses whatever you have on your computer that's open. So for instance, if I say, we want to cook chicken piccata tonight, you and me, right? I can say, give me the recipe for chicken piccata, then go into my Instacart, order said ingredients, deliver it to my house, email all my family in the area that dinner's at 7 tonight, click, go shower, go what you want, go mow the yard, and everyone will show up with your ingredients and you can cook together. It's pretty spectacular. It's scary, crazy, cool.
Download Perplexity's new AI web browser Comet by heading to pplx.ai/Roseanne and let your browser work for you. Plus, right now, when you download Comet, you get a month of Rumble Premium for free. That's pplx.ai/Roseanne.
They cannot be separated. They cannot be replaced. In fact, in Islam, as you know, there's a doctrine of abrogation, which is that like later verses cancel out the earlier verses,
Right.
And so, but nothing like that in Christianity. In Christianity, the Christians are engrafted into the Jewish root. And they become, you could almost say, spiritual Israelites. That's a phrase Jonathan Cahn uses, and I like it. I like it a lot. But there is no question that somehow trying to cut off the Old Testament and push it away. And some of these Christians are like, yeah, but Jesus. Well, in Christian theology, there are three persons in one God, right? There's God the Father, there's God the Son, that's Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Well, what are we going to do? Cut God the Father out? That's the Old Testament. And what, leave two people in the Trinity? I mean, if you tell this to the Pope, he would have a heart attack. He'd fall over.
Well, maybe not the new Pope, but the older popes.
Look, I mean, I like what, I think it was, I don't remember if it was Benedict or if it was John Paul II. He said, listen, it is the Holy Land for everybody, but it is the promised land to the Jews. He was talking about Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, we have a big fight on our hands.
Muhammad says it too.
Muhammad says it too, yeah. Interesting.
That's why we say they're actually all Zionists. They're all Zionists. They're all arguing over Jerusalem. It's not just the Jews. Christians, Islam, they all have a claim to that land, and they're all fighting for it. That's what we're witnessing today.
Right. But
Nobody
the
ever
Christians
says that.
don't want it. I mean, the Christians
Right.
aren't trying to take the land politically,
Correct.
right? The
Right.
Muslims want the physical control of the land.
Right.
So in that sense, it's a little different. But and look, so when we embarked on this film, quite honestly, we we knew about October 7th. We knew about the biblical archaeology. We were entranced by Jonathan Cahn's introduction of elements of like biblical prophecy, the
It's
book of
amazing.
Revelation, very
Yeah.
eye-opening stuff. In fact, the title, The Dragon's Prophecy, comes out of a passage where the dragon, which is Satan, is at war with a woman representing Israel. And so that's a kind of an image or metaphor for what's going on. But we didn't know that we would be facing these powerful currents, not only from the left, but from the right,
yeah.
that seek to delegitimize Israel and, in effect, help radical Islam. Now,
Yeah, exactly.
I know why the left wants to help radical Islam. Well, I don't know entirely because, of course, think of what strange bedfellows those two
I
camps
mean, it doesn't
are.
make any sense.
Right? Exactly. The LGBTQ people wouldn't survive very well under Sharia.
Yeah.
Right?
Tell them what your sister calls them. It's hilarious.
Oh, my sister calls, she's gay, but she calls them roof-toppers.
The roof-toppers. Yes, hello. There's the window. Keep walking.
Anyway, sorry.
But
you
they're
were
so
saying.
severely brainwashed
Yeah.
that they're actually working a lemming program of their own destruction.
I think from the
But
left...
that's how I see.
It's anti-colonization is what it is. It's
Well, the left, I
anti-white
think, is... The left doesn't know what it's doing, but the
No.
Muslims do. So
Yeah.
the left thinks, listen, we got all these ethnic groups. They all, these people identify as black, and these people identify as LGBTQ, and these people identify as feminists, and hey, these people identify as radical Muslims. So you're just another ethnic group.
Right.
Of course, from the radical Muslim point of view, it's like, listen, we are outsiders to this society. We need someone to give us passports so we can kind of get in. We can get in the door. We can get on the school board. We can run for office. Someone needs to run cover for us when we do bad stuff, and defend us in the name of free speech or legal process. We need lawyers to represent us in
Use
Guantanamo.
all your freedoms, all Christian democracy's freedoms against them, and then get a Dearborn. Right in the heart of it, and then the mayor of Dearborn says last week, no Christians are allowed here. He didn't say no Jews are allowed here. He said no Christians are allowed here, and they want a Dearborn in every state. And that's how they'll do it. All these gays are going, Israel is it's so brilliant how they've done it, and now they have to do it on the right because they already got the whole left working for them, and now they're going to get the right working for them. It's an exchange of money because none of them would do it for free because they're all hucksters
This is what I was
and
going to say. A lot
grifters,
of
and they'll
times
do anything for money.
people ask me, like, what's the motive? Now, I've debated Nick Fuentes. I think
You have?
Yeah. Well, what happened was Nick Fuentes is parading himself around, and he's basically going, everybody's too scared to debate me. That makes me the alpha male. He goes, Tucker won't debate me. Ben Shapiro's too wimpy to debate me. He's like, Charlie's a wimp. So I'm like, I'll debate you. So I debated him, and it was very, he didn't look good, let's put it this way, because of course, the guy, his scope of knowledge is like 13 years old, right?
I
So
know, he
he'd say
is.
things like, regime change is always a bad idea, Dinesh. And I'd go, well, Nick, off the top of my head, I can give you 25 examples of where regime change has worked beautifully.
Right.
And I just start rattling them off. And then you can just look in the video. And I had to look at it later. If you look at his face, he's like, why did I get into this? And then, of course, his young audience is like, who the hell is who is this guy debating Nick? Because Nick was like their little, King Arthur, Sir Galahad, and they're not used to seeing him like embarrassed. So that's Nick. Nick is proud of being an anti-Semite. But he claims, and this is part of his so-called witty shtick, he goes, well, I'm the intelligent anti-Semite, like Candace is the low-grade anti-Semite.
Yeah.
She's like the low-grade version of me. So that's Nick. Candace, I don't know as well. I was actually a regular speaker at her Blexit events because a lot of her Blexit stuff came out of films I did, like Hillary's America, which kind of exposed the secret history of the Democratic Party, all
Right.
the racism.
All the racism.
And so Candace loved me. I'd go to her events, but of course that was a different Candace.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's a different agenda. It's actually a different Candace, and I don't quite know. I know that she has always wanted to be a cultural icon. She, even more than a political icon, it's like politics is a stepping stone to be becoming like Kanye West. So she aspires to move into that space. And I think she realized that this is creates an electric chord with an audience that might open the door for that. So that's kind of my reading on Candace. Tucker to me is the most puzzling of all. Hard for me to see someone just doing it for the money. Tucker's from a wealthy family. He's very well off on his own.
His wife is also very wealthy. He's not doing it for money at all.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well,
believe
you
that.
know what I think about Tucker, because he was a friend, or I still tell him he's a friend, and I'm trying to save his soul from going straight to hell and burning there for time and all eternity in a lake of fire, being, anally raped by Satan every single day. But, because I still have feelings of love for him. But, Tucker, I told him, when you got attacked by that demon, it took you, because you changed then. And that demon, I know its name, and I can help you.
What is the
Just
name?
ask me. Belak.
Belak.
Uh-huh.
Is Belak? I'm trying to
Belak
think.
is the one that curses Israel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Donkey.
Huh?
The donkey, the biblical donkey.
Well,
story.
Belak and Balaam was the talking donkey. And,
Oh, interesting.
and Tucker does sound like he's talking out of his ass. I've heard from so many people who experienced post-COVID back side effects, some in my family, and the stories are heartbreaking. One woman told me that after getting the jab and then a booster, she was never the same. She said her whole body felt like it was burning from the inside out, and she couldn't eat. She was exhausted and in pain, and no one in the medical system had any answers for her. Stories like that show just how isolating, how scary it can be, which is why I want to tell you about the wellness company's Ultimate Spike Detox. Developed by Dr. Peter McCullough, this doctor-formulated blend is designed to help your body clear spike proteins while also supporting your immune system, heart, and brain. It combines 7 natural ingredients: nattokinase to help break down spike protein, bromelain to support immune health, and turmeric with black pepper to reduce inflammation and repair cells. If you or someone you love is still suffering, don't wait. Go to twc.health/RB and use code RB for 10% off plus free shipping. That demon did take him, and all that demon does is curse Israel. And that's what happened to Tucker. He's possessed.
10 years ago, the idea that a guy like Tucker would be sort of possessed by a demon, it would seem to me so far-fetched, I wouldn't even know what to say about it. But as you know, the central theme of the dragon's prophecy is that there's a world behind the world.
Yeah.
And that there is a cosmic battle that is going on between God and Satan.
Yeah,
because people often say it's a spiritual
war. It says
war.
in Torah that God created this world, that it would be the place where the war between God and the Satan took place.
Right.
And it was to judge your soul. Which way are you going to go?
And I
that's
think,
exactly what's happening as I see it.
Me too.
and part
And
of
you
the
see
genius.
people fall. You see people fall right before your eyes on TV every day. And we're supposed to, the reason, Jew, where it says, the chosen and all that stuff that everybody doesn't know anything about, what that means is chosen to witness how Torah unfolds in the world and how it comes true. And that's what the dragon's prophecy is about too. Seeing how the word happens and how it manifests in the world. And you see people fall off and they go the way of death. They choose death, not life. So, and you're seeing it every day. And I always tell people, your job is to witness. Your job is to see it. But, they don't see it. They go, la-di-da, I wonder what the Queen of England's up to. Or, how big Kim Kardashian's butt got this week. They're not witnessing what's right in front of them. That the wicked are falling right and left. I mean, they're undoing themselves on television in front of us every day. Comey, we've waited all these years for, the people who betrayed our country and overthrew the Republic of the United States of America, and took so many years to do it, are coming to judgment now. We're seeing it. We're seeing it, and that we're not witnessing it. And the people who know are BSing us about how it's all Trump's fault. on Jimmy Kimmel's show, saying, "Oh, Trump," telling us it's Israel, it's Trump, because they don't want us to witness what's right before our eyes, and is very obvious.
I mean, I'm watching MSNBC, and they keep using two words: retribution
Yeah,
and vengeance.
right.
Now, first of all, I am a strong believer that retribution is the very essence of justice.
Of course.
And what I mean by that is all justice is based on retribution, right? What goes around comes around. What you did will be done to you. And not only that, but rival theories of justice make no sense. Sometimes people say, well, Dinesh, justice is really based on deterrence. Well, deterrence has nothing to do with the perpetrator or the victim. Deterrence means let's calibrate the punishment so some third guy, uninvolved in the situation, is going to have his motive structured right, so he will or will not be more likely to do it. But that's nothing to do with the justice of the situation itself. And the other thing is, these guys keep talking about retribution and vengeance, and I'm thinking to myself, retribution for what? What did you do to this guy that makes him want to be in a mood of retribution?
Yeah, they
right?
always erase the agent and the crime,
Right.
or they turn it upside down. They do a switch, like when you turn the
Inversion.
yeah, but you've got the sand that runs
the hourglass.
through,
Boom.
the hourglass turn,
Yep.
the flip. You go, oh, you aren't the victim, you're the aggressor.
And this is the essence of, I think this is the essence, because the essence of evil is not the opposite of good. The essence of evil is the inversion, where good becomes evil, evil becomes good. If you can pull that off, now you're like an A student of Satan.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And that is where our culture is today. I think the thing is that Satan is not strong enough to defeat God, right?
Of course not.
No. So what does Satan do? He always targets the beloved of God. And his idea is if I can ruin them, I get the last laugh. I still don't win, but at least I get a major chuckle on God. I've one-upped him in this case. So the whole meaning of Genesis 1 to me, the story of the garden, Adam and Eve, is exactly that. Satan targets God's beloved creation, which is man. I think for the exact same reason Satan targets the Jews. The Jews are the chosen of God. All right, let's destroy them. Let's take their holy temple that Solomon built, was rebuilt by Herod. Let's go stick the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock on top as a victory arch. And let's see if we can push the Jews out from the river to the sea. Now,
Because God said, I give you the land between the river and the sea.
that's it.
Yeah.
And so why the secular, godless left is for this is one thing. But to see people in the name of Christianity, in the name of the good, the true, and the beautiful, signing up for this is the real scandal right now.
I agree.
It definitely is, and it will bring America down. And, it will destroy America's soul. And, I'm terrified of that because I love America. And I don't want to see that happen like it happened to every other nation that did that. Israel will be fine. Like they go, you want to get rid of Israel, fine. You won't destroy Israel. Israel will merely pivot to India and make it the technological giant of the world. It's America that'll fall.
Well, first of all, Israel's in the Bible and America isn't. So what that tells you right away is that to the degree you accept the Bible or believe it, there's an unfolding of events and Israel is at the center of it. The United States' position is going to be judged by which side we take.
Exactly.
Right? Now, we know that the architecture of this country, going back to the founders and long before, they didn't come to this country empty-handed. They came bringing Athens and Jerusalem. Athens,
right.
we know all about. It's Socrates, it's philosophy, it's the Greek theater, it's democracy, Pericles. But Jerusalem is the controversial part because Jerusalem is based upon this astounding idea of God's revelation, right? And I think the Bible, to me, is a fascinating document because it doesn't prove anything. It just asserts it. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And I remember when I was reading this and, reading it as a young adult, like at 17, I'm like, who's talking? You know what I mean? It doesn't say in the beginning, I created the heavens and the earth. So there is a witness, to use your word, a witness to these events. But who is that witness? And on what basis are you supposed to accept it or believe it? This is where I think the archaeology stuff is so fascinating because for centuries, I mean, if you go back to 1985 and someone were to say to you, prove to me definitively not using the Bible that there was a King David. You couldn't do it.
Couldn't.
No, they couldn't do it for
You
a
couldn't
long
do it.
time.
Jeremiah, Isaiah, and not only that, minor figures in the Bible. I'll just give one example because to me, is so interesting. In about the 6th or 7th century BC, you have the prophet Jeremiah, and he's out on the streets. He's railing against the king, a guy named Zedekiah, and Jeremiah basically goes, "You better straighten up, because otherwise the kingdom from the north, the Babylonians, are going to invade. They're going to destroy this kingdom. You're going to be ruined." So the king doesn't believe it, but he's nervous with this guy Jeremiah. So he picks two dudes at the court. One is Gedaliah, son of Pashur, and the other is Jehukal, son of Shelemiah. Minor figures in the Bible, barely mentioned in the Hebrew scriptures. He goes, "Go keep an eye on Jeremiah. Make sure he's not causing me too much trouble." Fast forward 2,500 years, and recently they're digging in the city of David, and they find 51 seals out of the ground, clay seals that are used to seal documents. The documents are lost, but the seals are preserved. And one of the seals, Jehukal, son of Shelemiah. The other one, Gedaliah, son of Pashur. Boom. Suddenly, like out of the Bible, jump these two guys into the face of history. And suddenly you realize there really was a Jehukal, there really was a Gedaliah, there really was a Jeremiah, and there really was a Zedekiah. And all these events, you can disagree with the theology, you can reject the miracles, but the fact of the matter is the historicity of the Bible is being proved every day.
Well, that's why they put the golden dome on top, because what's underneath that proves all the history of the Bible. And they don't want us to get to it.
And you can't dig there.
No.
Right.
But, something will happen, and, God's got it all figured out how the movie will go.
Yeah. I
Is
mean,
this
you're
the
right.
Earthquake stuff?
What's this?
The earthquake stuff?
Well, I've thought for a long time, because, I studied deep Torah, and, and plus I'm kind of crazy, and I dream things.
Go for it. Let's. Something's about to come out. Like you're
Well,
about to disgorge.
No, I see things, and then they happen. My son knows it, and my family knows it. But about 5. I don't know how long ago, because time doesn't work for me. But I just said there's going to be a big earthquake in Jerusalem, and I just thought that. And then so I was studying the Star of Jacob that came Friday night, and my mom saw it. She said the whole sky was whirling in colors, and and I told her about it. Then I fell asleep, but my mom
Wow.
did see it, and so and it's Atlas 3I too, and all that stuff with the 7 comets coming. Some say the Star of Bethlehem returning, all this stuff. But it also, because when the UN, all those nations voted for the Palestinian state, on target, that was the kickoff of Gog and Magog. And so that's a sign of Messiah. So it says that after, and also in Zohar, it predicts that comet to the day, the 27th, on a Friday. It predicts it to the date. And the Star of Jacob. So it says that after the Star of Jacob, after Gog and Magog, comes the Star of Jacob, and 70 days after that, we'll find out if I'm right. But I read it. It goes, an earthquake hits Jerusalem. And I went, wow, there's another thing that I thought, and then I read. But so now we'll see if it's right.
Yeah, let's timestamp this podcast. and go
Okay,
back
so
and
it
check.
says 70 days after Gog Magog's onset, and the Star of Jacob comes 70 days after that comes a major earthquake in Jerusalem, and shortly thereafter comes Messiah. So we'll see, but that's what it says.
Well, this is how the future connects weirdly with the past, because there is currently a debate between two groups of scholars about the location of Sodom and Gomorrah. There is a
San Francisco? No, okay.
Good one. Good one. Let's just that may be the modern day recreation of
okay.
it.
Where does it say?
Well, all right. So Sodom historically was believed to be at the southern end of the Dead Sea, on the Jordan side of the Dead Sea, on the southern tip. That's where Albright, one of the founders of biblical archaeology, thought it was. And that place was destroyed by a massive earthquake at right about the right time. This is what kind of brought it to my mind. But this is kind of how this is a fascinating element of biblical archaeology. Another group of archaeologists said the site cannot be there because in the Bible it says that Abraham and Lot were standing on a mountain and they decided, one of you go this direction, the other go that direction. And it says, and Lot looked toward the Jordan Valley, right? And he saw that it was very fertile, and then he moved in that direction, quote, as far as Sodom. So according to these biblical archaeologists, they're like, you can't see the southern end of the Dead Sea from this spot.
Right.
What you can see is the northern end of the Dead Sea, and so Sodom, if the Bible is right, would need to be there. So they go and start digging. Sure enough, as they dig, they find ashes, people blown to smithereens. Now, interestingly, that destruction, which also happens at the same time, this is why there's a debate. Both cities were totally destroyed, but in the case of the northern location, seemingly by some sort of a meteoric blast, where the meteor disintegrated in the sky, and essentially everything was obliterated completely into ash, and the remnants of the ash are there. So the key to the biblical archaeology is not the Bible says it, therefore it has to be here. It's the Bible says it, so let's go and take a look. It's a beautiful marriage of sort of theology and science.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
And that's why when I came across it, Debbie and I were looking at each other, we're like, why isn't this being shouted from the rooftops of every synagogue and church? Because we're not, young people are trained in the language of history and of secular reason. And I feel that almost as the world has become more secular, as the world has pulled away from God, it's like God is like, all right, I'm going to send you a message, but I'm going to send it to you in your modern secular language through science. And you're going to be looking at seals and stones and tablets. And you're not going to know what to do with it because all this stuff that you thought was mythical, you have these literary critics in the 19th century sitting around going, the Bible was written hundreds of years later by people who made half the stuff up. Let's test that. If you lived 300 years after King Zedekiah, would you have known the names of these two junior officials at the court?
Probably not.
There's no way you would have known that.
That's right.
The information had to have come by someone very close to those events. And this can be said of the entire Hebrew, and I would add Christian scriptures. There's an authenticity to it.
I would say every modern scientific discovery and archaeological discovery only proves the existence of the truth in the Bible and of God.
Absolutely.
So the skeptics now are reduced to, well, we still haven't found Noah's Ark. We still haven't found the Tower of Babel. Okay, granted. We haven't found certain things. But let's ask this question. Can you cite, and I do this in the film, to an old guy who's been doing archaeology for 40 years in Israel, I go, can you name a single archaeological finding that disputes or contradicts the Bible? And he's like, no. And in fact, none exists. So this alone is very telling. Because applying the old idea of the philosopher Karl Popper, refutation is the essence of science. If you haven't found Noah's Ark, well, keep looking. It might turn up 50 years from now. Maybe it was destroyed. So that proves nothing. But if you can find something where the Bible says X and you can now prove Y, well, then you've got a point. But they don't have a point.
Well, in deep teachings, it says that the messianic times will be where it all goes together, where God is proven by science and science is affected by that. But, I can't remember who says it, but that hell is the place where there is no reason. Don't you love that?
I love that.
But we're all of our stuff is going to come together. Where science and the belief in God are going to be the very same thing. That's what I think is our next, I hate to say evolution, but growth, acknowledgement, healing of all the splits we got in us.
It's so true. It's absolutely right. I think we're at a moment now, much more than I've seen in my lifetime, where the political, the cultural, the moral, the spiritual are all these rivers are intersecting.
Yeah.
And we sort of now have to look at the events in front of us through all these prisms. One of them is not sufficient.
No.
We use, for example, the Middle East. If people have been trying to solve the Middle East politically for 50 years or more. I remember when I first came to America, there was a Carter peace plan, then there was a Reagan plan, the Clinton plan, the Obama, of course, we know about Obama. No one has fixed it, right?
If they would just shut up and let God fix it, it'd get fixed real quick. But, the people that are in the way, the fixers, they're not, they don't have the right mentality or heart to fix nothing because they're just in there for the grift. Let's be real. If people of God got together and just prayed together and let things alone, I think that'd be the big fix.
I think also I'm finding on social media these days, like the depth of ignorance is very deep.
Yeah.
So
It's deeper than I ever feared.
So people say like the Jews don't really belong in that land, but you know what? The Palestinians do. Well, let's take a minute let's put the Jews aside for a moment. Let's look at the Palestinian side. That area called Gaza, right, which was Philistine territory. And granted, there is this kind of onomatological or name similarity between the Philistines and the Palestinians, but it should be very clear, those are not the same people. So the Philistines were called the Sea Peoples. They came from Europe. They came from the Aegean. They were from places like Cyprus. So they inhabited that land. Palestinians are just Arabs who essentially either colonized or infiltrated that land, and they didn't even do so as Palestinians. Recently, when I did a conversation in Jerusalem a few weeks ago with Moab Hassan Youssef, the son of Hamas.
We want
Yeah,
him
this
so
guy, I love the fact that he's like, Dinesh, he's like, there's no such thing as a Palestinian. He's like, there's Palestinianism. And I'd never heard that term. I was like, Palestinianism, that's interesting. He's like, there is an ideology, but there isn't, in fact. I mean, as you know, as well as anyone else, but maybe the audience doesn't all know, the name Palestine was inflicted on the Jews by the Romans as a punishment.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? The Jews are doing the Jewish revolts. The Romans are, we'll teach you a lesson. Let's take the name of your ancient enemy, Philistine, and we're going to rename your country, your nation, Palestine. That's how we get Palestine until the Egyptian Yasser Arafat goes, nice name. I think we're going to call ourselves Palestinians.
Well, he got it from the Mufti of Jerusalem, who was
right.
Hitler's friend. And they brainwashed him and raised him. He was a royal Egyptian. He was of the royal house of Egypt. And, they invented this whole way to rid not only, they wanted to chase all the Jews from Europe to the Middle East and kill them there. It was a continuum.
Yeah.
And the Arabs fought for Germany in the Middle East. And everybody wants to forget that. But Glenn Beck, he has a museum and he has the uniform of the Arabs who fought for the Third Reich. And it's the sword of Islam over the swastika.
Yeah.
And people don't want to know that either. But, that's what jihad is the Third Reich.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you see it, I think, in October 7th. One of our
Definitely.
One of our decisions in this film is, how do we start the film? And I'm like, well, if you're making a movie about World War II and the Pacific War, you have to start with Pearl Harbor. That's what got it going. So we want to start with October 7th. And I think the most significant thing about October 7th is that it was filmed by Hamas.
Yeah.
We make the
Live
point in the
stream.
film that even the Nazis did not parade their atrocities
they
in
hid 'em.
Germany. They hid them. And they put all the death camps in Poland, in occupied territories, whereas Hamas was really proud of what it did. And so the eerie feeling of watching the film when you start it is you're seeing it, but you're not seeing it from the point of view of the victims. Normally, if you're showing a home invasion, it's the people in the house, but you're seeing it from the point of view of the home invaders, almost like you have a GoPro and you're riding into Israel with Hamas. Why? Because they're filming it. And I also think what's really eerie is we were in like Nahal Oz, the kibbutz, so we're talking to Lishai Moran, whose husband is a hostage. In fact, I just saw it on social media just minutes ago before we started talking that the Hamas is now claiming they can't find him. that he's, quote, disappeared. They've lost him, right? But we're talking to Lishai, and we're standing like 700 yards from the Gaza border. You can actually hear bombs, machine gun fire going off in the background. And Lishai is talking about what happened on that day, how these guys came through the window. They're heavily armed. She and her husband and their 2 children ran into the safe room. So the terrorists go next door, and there's a teenage boy over there. They grab him, and they bring him over, and they tell him, listen. So the teenage boy knocks on the door and says, please open the door, because if you don't open the door, they're going to kill me, and then they're going to kill you. So they open the door, right? But as we're talking, and all of this is in the film, Debbie says, we actually have that footage. In other words, from all the live streaming that Hamas did while Lishai is talking, it's not a case that we're recreating it. We have the original footage. You can actually see the people coming in the window. You can see them in our house. So the event comes alive. And this, to me, is the essence of good filmmaking. In my earlier 2000 Mules, I wanted to show the 2020 election fraud by putting you on the scene. You're standing there. Here's a mail-in drop box. Here's a guy pulling up in a car in the middle of the night. He looks left and right to make sure no one sees him. He's got a big backpack of ballots. You can see it. I don't have to tell you about it. And the same here. I want people to at least to a limited degree, experience October 7. And that's why we've got we have a little bit of a graphic warning, and it is a little arresting, but it's something we need to watch. It's essential for a right understanding of what's going on.
Well, it's a snuff film. And, when Israel wanted to enter it into a Canadian Film Festival, they wouldn't allow them to because they said they didn't get this for satanic. That it was Hamas owns the footage.
Oh, wow.
And they denied Israel.
Have you guys got permission from Hamas to use this footage?
That's what they said.
Really?
And so Israel said, no, we don't have permission from Hamas. Well, then we'll have to expel you from the film festival because the footage belongs to Hamas. It's their intellectual property. So that's like putting, if Ted Bundy had filmed all of his murders and, dismemberments of these women, that's like they would put that film out and people would watch it and identify with Ted Bundy. If that isn't some satanic mind control, I don't know what is. It's to get people to identify with the aggressor and the murderer. I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, and that's what happened, because people saw the girl's body, they saw the girl's bloody pants, they saw her broken in half, and the day after, worldwide it popped up with tents with the same signs on October 8th, worldwide. Does a grassroots movement pop up overnight worldwide with the same signs, the same tents, everything? Does that happen, or was that planned for a really long time? And it was, and they're cheering for murder and rape, and Israel becomes the raped Israelis become the only women on earth who are denied the ability to name their rapists under international law. I mean, if this isn't satanic, I don't know what is.
Well, I think it also helps to italicize the true test of anti-Semitism. I say this because, as you know, a lot of young people have become a little resistant, because they think that if you say anti-Semite, you're trying to shut them up, prevent them from asking questions. Hey, I refuse to be silenced, blah, blah, blah.
I'm allowed to criticize the Israeli government by saying the Israeli women deserve to be raped and they're demonic. Well, I'm sorry, but that isn't criticizing the Israeli government.
Right.
That's something way different.
So the standard, I think this it ties right into what you were saying, is, look, if you are applying a different standard to the Jews and to Israel than you apply to anyone else, then boom, your motives are suspect right there.
Right.
So let's take an example. Nobody denies that when the Japanese came and pulverized Pearl Harbor, the United States was A, correct to be outraged, B, correct to declare war on Japan. You can debate whether the atomic bomb should have been dropped, but even the people who say the atomic bombs should not have been dropped agree that a U.S. land invasion of Japan, which was the alternative, would have been legitimate. So no one said things like, well, let's count the number of civilians who were killed at Pearl Harbor, and then let's limit U.S. retaliation to exactly that number. And if the U.S. goes above that number, this is a moral horror, and the United States now becomes the villain, and Japan becomes the victim. No one takes this position, but they take the position on October 7th. So that tells me something's up. Because suddenly or even apply the same logic individually, right? If I'm in my house with my family, we're all eating dinner, and some home invaders come breaking in, they like start firing shots, they kill my wife, they rape my daughter, they do this and that, and they run away, and then I grab my gun, I chase after them. They go into a car or a van, they come out, they've got their own kids, and they grab their own kids and stick them in front of them, and they go, you can't shoot because you're not allowed to shoot civilians. I got some civilians right here. Most people would say they are the ones putting their own kids in danger. Yeah. You have every right to retaliate. It's not your job to watch out for their kids. It's their job to put their kids to the side and face you straight out.
Yeah.
So this is such a miniature replication of what's going on with Hamas, and the idea that you could blame the victim of the home invasion, in this case Israel, is just morally preposterous. And yet...
It's satanic.
It's satanic.
Inversion.
It is satanic.
It is an inversion. And also, what other army do they go? Did you feed the people that are holding your hostages and keeping the war going? Are you giving them enough food every day?
I was watching, Debbie and I watching, this is about a year ago, Netflix had a very interesting documentary on World War II. New footage of a lot of those bombing raids. And I will never forget this conversation with one of the bombing commanders. He said he was dispatched on a bombing raid, and he looks at his orders, and he's asked to hit a target. I think this was either Dresden or Hamburg. And he goes, what's the target? And they go, there are 20,000 women and children sheltering in this building. And he goes, I'm not going to bomb a building with 20,000 women and children. They don't have anything to do with this. They're not combatants in this war. And his general goes, it's an order. And so the guy goes, so I did it. Because he goes, I didn't have a choice. But he goes, I haven't been able to live with it to this day. Now, my point is, in the logic of World War II, and let's remember, Churchill and FDR were very concerned that the German public supported Hitler, and they were hanging with Hitler to the end, and that the German refusal to surrender was coming in part from the fact that the German public was saying, no, we think we can turn it around. And so and here we're not even talking, Israel doesn't even do this. We're talking about a direct targeted attack on civilians to break the will of the German people. I think probably, it's a horrific thing. There's no question about it. Churchill thought there was no alternative to doing it. And this is part of the dirtiness of war. But again, Israel goes out of its way. We were talking to guys who go, you can't imagine how many both soldiers and Israeli dogs have been killed because they plant all these devices. So it's much easier to carpet bomb Gaza. But they don't do it. They're doing it almost with moral scruples all the way, and they're getting blamed for it.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why everybody's mad over in Israel at Bibi, because why didn't you just go all out instead of dragging it out all this time? Because obviously they never released the hostages, so that means they didn't want the war to end, because who steals hostages and then refuses to release them even though they're losing? Who keeps the war going? The guilty.
Certainly not victims of genocide.
Certainly not people who say they're the victims, who hold the keys to the end of the war in their hands and their tunnels. And then people are still like, those poor perpetrators, those poor murderers, rapists, and baby killers, those poor, poor people. They could end the war in a second. It's Satanism.
I think
it's satanic, and they all are brainwashed, and they won't survive. The farther they go down that road, young people, the farther you go down that road, the worse it's going to get for you. And, I want to wake them up. I really, really do, because I like children. I hate to see them used to destroy themselves in some lemming programming. American boys that listen to Nick Fuentes and all those people, they got to get some balls. He's just taking their balls away, because he's obviously gay as hell. Everybody knows it. All these guys are, I won't even go into that. But, they got to stand up and get some balls for their country because they don't want to lose their rights. They don't want to lose America. They don't want it to become a caliphate, for God's sake, just because they have secret fantasies of wearing pink panties and skirts. They better man up. I'm telling you, get off those games and man up.
Yeah, I mean, the pastors need to speak up more. They have themselves
Or
been,
step aside. I
Let's-
mean, if you're on the devil's side, may God remove you. I don't mean from the earth, but from power and any kind of position. And just may you be replaced by a patriot who really knows what America's about. That's my prayer for it.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are just, they this is a controversial topic. I don't want people to be leaving my congregation over this.
Pink
And,
panties. Wearing pink panties, I tell you.
I mean, put it this way, like, what is your business? I mean, you're in the business of
Supposed to be
selling
saving
morality.
souls. Supposed to be
right,
saving
that's your
souls
commodity.
and
That's
lifting
what,
One at a
souls.
time.
Supposed to be lifting morals and souls, not denigrating them.
yeah,
Not
no, that's totally right.
not rubbing men's face in the dirt and saying, you've got to help people who want to kill you.
Now, I gotta have you explain. Jake, you sent me a beautiful note after you and your mom saw this film. I gotta say, it was one of the most moving things I've seen.
Thank
I
you.
read it to Debbie aloud.
I used ChatGPT to write that.
That's right. It wasn't even me.
Whoa,
Grok 3 wrote
I'm
that.
kidding. No,
I said,
we
write
were-
something moving for Dinesh. We got to keep him happy. We just watched his film.
No,
we
were
talk about it.
I wanted to thank you for setting me up. I was just going to do this. We got to talk about this film before he leaves because.
Well, we actually have been.
No,
this,
I know,
this is
but-
all the meat and material of
but
the
I mean
film.
specifically
It was
this
beautiful.
film.
We loved it.
Mind blown. And I just got to tell you that the message I sent you from us was, of course, real. It wasn't ChatGPT, but we were truly touched because, as you can see, we're very passionate about this. We talk about this every week. We've been seeing this since the beginning, and we don't feel like there's other people that validate our opinions. We feel alone a lot of the times, and we'll go out and we'll talk to people and like, you're just, like even Tucker, you're not even the Jews of the Bible or whatever these people are saying, which is terrifying shit. So to see an actual movie that touches on the Bible, you touch on archaeology, all the stuff we talk, but it validates what we've been saying, really did touch us because we didn't feel alone after. We felt like, okay, there are good people out there that see it too. And I can't tell you how good that feels. I mean, I'm getting emotional. Like it's a scary time. It's a very scary time. I have young children, and I needed that so deeply. So thank you so much.
Because I'm like, is this the time for Jews to leave America?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to leave. We have guns now. I'm not scared this time. We have guns, but it is terrifying that it's the right wing. That's the one thing the right and left agree on is the hatred of Jews. They disagree on everything. They hate each other. They're mortal enemies. And even after Charlie Kirk's shooting, I said this on the podcast last week, we've been waiting for this moment as Republicans for so long. We finally have it now, the moral authority to say the left is the violent ones. The violence is coming from you.
Totally.
We can win the next 10 elections. We've fought so hard. And as soon as it happened, Candace, Tucker, Nick Fuentes, they turned their cameras on and they go, it was the Jews. And
Well,
they blew it.
they
Here's
blew
the thing.
MAGA.
And
Yeah.
right, and this is a point that a lot of these young MAGA people don't get. Okay, so let's look at the Charlie Kirk assassination. You've got this twisted kid who is so-called dating a trans, whatever that even means. Our theory, Debbie's and mine, is that some of this trans stuff these are basically people who are gay, but they're raised in a conservative household.
That's
And
right. So they think they have to go trans.
Right. So they basically go, well, think of this kid. He was raised in a law enforcement household. I'm sure his parents were like, what? You're gay? So he's like, no, I'm not gay. I'm actually dating a woman. Yeah, true. It's, I forget the guy's name, but, it's a man becoming a woman, but we're in our own way mirroring the heterosexual lifestyle. Anyway, and then you have all these reports which remain to be investigated that there were these trans chat groups that knew
100%.
about it beforehand.
Yeah.
They're like, something big is going to happen tomorrow. This is like on the record.
100%.
Right?
And they had a book on Amazon 2 days before.
Yeah, that is true too. I don't know
Oh,
if you
and
saw
then
it, yeah.
leave aside basically carving your motives on the bullets. This is something I've never even heard of, which is like, catch this fascist. And so we got him. And it's like dead to rights. And then just when you're like, okay, you know what, this is the time to crack down on Antifa. Some of these trans groups have this military training. They train for violence. Okay, we need to stop this stuff.
Yeah.
And then right at that moment, from the right, unexpectedly, like your right window gets blown out, and you've got these people some of whom in our case, we know.
Yeah.
We don't know Nick Fuentes, but we know Candace, we know Tucker, and suddenly you're getting no, it's not the trans leftist. It's Netanyahu, it's Mossad. And
it's not organic. You can feel it's not organic. It comes from a very weird place. And even Ian Carroll we had on this show, I tell people all this time, we had met him outside. We had him on the show. Everyone was mad at us. But outside, I'm like, what is going on? And he's like,
because I wanted to debate him.
yeah, no, and he was respectful to his credit at that time.
But I got him.
We did, but the point was he said to me, and I tell this all the time, even he knew it's not organic. He said the Fuentes stuff, this movement that he's a part of, I can tell you it's not organic. That's what he said to me. It's manufactured. So even he knows that. I can't get my mind
Let's talk
around
about the Qatar angle here a little
Hello.
bit because this
they
is
own
key.
all our universities, our State Department. They're
This is the
heavy
point.
and they're Obamites.
Who was I talking to the other day? And the guy goes, Dinesh, listen, he goes, I can tell you that Israel has a lot of influence because I'm constantly being invited on free trips to Israel, and I've never been invited on a free trip to Qatar. And I was like, that's because the Qataris, first of all, they are going after the institutions at the root. Yeah, they're not going to invite you on a free trip. That's because they own the political science department at like 12 major universities. Yeah. They endow chairs. They take over these institutions. They put a lot of money into Hollywood. So, I mean, you're talking about, first of all, 2 billion people in the Muslim world. You're talking about massively oil-rich countries. Qatar, the Qataris basically joke that they're the chosen people because none of them have to work.
Right.
And basically oil comes out of the ground and it's like dollar bills are flying into the air. They're like, obviously God must have liked what he saw when he saw he made us. So these people are using their... And who was the guy? Oh, Mossad. Mossad told me, he goes, it's financial jihad.
Yep.
It is financial
They
jihad.
figured it out.
Yeah.
And Charlie Kirk, one of the last things he said, and I want to say this, is he said, Islam is using the left to slit the West's throat. And they shot him in the throat. Okay, put those two things together.
I did think that was, you would expect a shooter to go for the chest. It's so symbolic that they went for the throat. And I mean, I can't say, probably none of us is really over it even now.
No, we'll never be over it.
I still wake up first thing I think.
I don't think, I think there's a lot more lessons coming, and we're going to find out a lot more. And, I hope that we are still mentally alive enough to be able to accept the truth, and we don't rationalize it away going, oh no, Bibi came in there, he flew in on a private plane there and just Orem, Utah. I hope we don't do that. I hope we're strong enough and mentally capable enough to be able to witness the truth and not try to rationalize it away for our superstitions and our hatreds.
I don't even really blame the young people so much. I think the phrase that was used at Charlie's memorial was the lost generation. And it is true that there is a generation of young people. They are the product of the most broken of broken families.
Yes.
They don't have the opportunities that their parents did. That I think, Debbie and I struggled when we're both from other countries, but we could buy a house and we could see the American dream. And I can understand a certain sense of just despondency and even anomie that comes out of like, I don't see a future.
Right.
I get all that. And that's why I blame the professors.
Yeah.
And I blame the people in authority.
Yeah.
And so if we seem to be like focused on even the right-wing pundits, it's because when you're leading a lost generation, you have a lot of responsibility
do.
not to be the Pied Piper that takes them off the cliff.
Right.
And if you are, and you do it knowingly, you're the apostle of Satan. That's a
right.
fact.
I say that.
And you're doing the very people that you claim to be helping. You're misleading them. You're using what in rhetoric is called the argumentum ad ignorantium. You're the argument that appeals to the ignorance of the audience. You presume your audience is really stupid. They don't know how stupid they are. So you can tell them things and they go, wow.
Yeah. It's like Candace and her-
That
those
was
things,
when I came to television, what their attitude there was about working class people and why they hated me so bad, because I said, no, these people are smarter than you. I'm not going to play down to them because they're not ignorant. You are. And that's why they hated me, because, I knew that I was there to uplift, not degrade. And they're the same people in all those positions of that tastemaker position. They have that same attitude of just despising their own audience. It's horrible.
The other thing they're playing on, and this is the other feature of anti-Semitism that we haven't mentioned, it's raised briefly in the film, that racism is different than anti-Semitism. People think of the two as the same, but racism is essentially, I'm up here, I'm looking down at you, and I'm like, you're inferior, and so racism in that sense always has this downward trajectory. Anti-Semitism is not like that, because Jews are one of the most successful tribes in world history. So, as Netanyahu says to me in the film, he goes, we found this land, it was mostly barren, and he goes, and look what we did with it. And he goes, and so we're going to keep it because we essentially built it. It's kind of like saying we bought Manhattan from the Indians for 50 cents, but it was worth 50 cents. There was nothing there. We built it. We created Manhattan, and so the value is not in the original land.
Like the Pilgrims built America.
The Pilgrims built America. And I even have gotten into fights about this. People go, Dinesh, you're an immigrant. And I go, yeah, but immigrants didn't build America.
Yeah.
The settlers built America.
Yeah.
Immigrants immigrated to a good society that was better than their own, but that society already existed.
Right.
So we've contributed as immigrants to this society, but we are not its original builders. The settlers built it.
It is about building, isn't it? Rather than just destroying. It's about whether you're going to create or destroy. That's good and evil too. It's the same thing, same root.
It is, and I think also, and Khan talks about this, he goes, one of the signs of the last age is there will be not just an attack on God, that's sort of a little more to be expected, not just an attack on the Jews and the Christians, but like an attack on productivity, on family, on community, on God's creation, on the distinction between men and women, all the fundamental human and rational and even natural categories and affections. All of it will come under attack.
Yeah, like building community wealth is a bad thing now.
Right.
It's
Every group, every tribe has built by helping its own.
Right.
The Mormons did it, the Hindus do it, the overseas Chinese did it in places like Malaysia. And so again, why are you singling out the Jews? The Jews do it, but I know 10 other people who do it. In fact, not only do I know 10 other people who do it, that is in fact the recipe for groups pulling themselves up out of discrimination and out of poverty. That is the formula. And not only that, but then when you have members of your group that do bad things, it's going to make your group look bad. So that's why, people say, well, why are you doing this? Why are you making these racial judgments? Well, unfortunately, when a lot of bad people are coming from one group, people are going to cast aspersions on the group. Though even the whole DEI phenomenon comes out of that, because you give preferences to a group and the achievements of everybody in that group, not just the people who got the preference, all of them fall under suspicion.
Yep. Well said. Can I ask a quick question? Sorry, in the Dragon's Prophecy, because we had Jonathan Kahn on. Do you think we're at the end days? You specifically?
Well, it all points to it.
Well,
let me put it this way.
Because I want to know. What
I
you
approach this from a much more kind of sort of secular mindset, I would say, than Khan. And the way I look at it, there are people who are very ingenious in being able to read the fine print, so to speak, and even between the lines. They'll read the book of Revelation and they will give you a rather blow-by-blow chronology of the last days. My view is that the book of Revelation is deliberately more veiled. It's deliberately more obscure. There's a lot of imagery and metaphor in it. Now, Khan exploits this beautifully, right? He talks about the colors of the apocalypse. And I think in a beautiful transition, he goes the green for the green horse, the red for the red horse, the black for the black horse. And now let's take a look at the colors, not just of the Palestinian flag, but a lot of the other flags of the nearby Muslim countries. They've got the colors of the apocalypse. And that's striking and interesting, right? But my view is that when it comes to biblical prophecy, let's just focus on the really big stuff. So the return of the Jews to their ancestral homeland. Check. The reason
enough.
That's a big one. And the reason it's a big one is because prophecy is impressive in direct proportion to its improbability, right? If I toss a coin and I say, I'm going to call 3 heads in a row, and I get 3 heads, unlikely, but it could happen. On the other hand, if I spin a roulette wheel that has 800 numbers on it, and I tell you, I'm going to call the number in advance, and then I do it, that's pretty impressive because the chances I could do that. So what are the chances? If you lived, let's just say in, 100 AD or 500 AD, and someone told you these Jews are all over the world, scattered, are going to return, not just going to return to return together, they're going to return to the place that they came from. They're going to revive the Hebrew language after 2,000 years. They're going to eat the same food and celebrate the same holidays and worship the same God. Most people would think you're nuts.
Right.
In fact, when I came to America, the Shah was in charge in Iran. If you were to tell me that there's going to be a jihadi revolution and it's going to be led by the Muslims and the Bible points to Iran, I would say, well, that's not going to happen because look at the Shah. He's pro-Western, he's pro-Israel. So it took the Khomeini revolution to move us where that passage in the Bible becomes more plausible. So my view is just this, where we don't know anything about the date or time of these events, but we can see signs that some of the broad trends described in the Bible are eerily familiar to us. So we can't deny we are in that last age. How long it's going to last, I think, is an open question.
Well, I would tell everybody, go ahead and search the Star of Jacob, and you'll find a lot of stuff that'll blow your mind there. Because it happened.
Yeah.
And it had 7 comets with it. And now there's the Atlas 3I breaking apart and stuff. I mean, I don't know.
Have you been tracking the Atlas 3 AI?
I have not been tracking the Atlas. I want people to search. Well, they don't have to search. thedragonsprophecyfilm.com.
Oh, that's right.
That's where we're going.
But
that
it goes
doesn't even have to
along
be
with
searched.
it.
Just
It goes
type-
along with all of it.
It ties into all this.
It
Our
ties into all
conversation,
of
it's
it.
funny because we
It's a
don't actually
brilliant
have
movie.
to do, quote, film talk because this is the material that this film deals with. And what
Yeah.
I love about it is that it engages the political head on. I mean, Tucker is in the film, and the left is in the film, and we deal with the
Everything
issue
we've
of
talked about today is in the
colonization. I mean, think of the strange phenomenon that the Jews alone are accused of colonizing their own land.
Right. We talk about it
Right,
every
this is
week.
like the Indians are colonizing India. Really?
Right.
And I made the point. I was on with Matt Gaetz, and Matt Gaetz was
He's
like,
another one.
Yeah, he's
well,
gone.
he's like, Dinesh, he's like, listen, so what if the Jews were there first? He goes, listen, the Native Americans were first in America, so does that mean they get to keep the whole country? And I go, well, I said, look, there are only 3 ways to get a country. 1, original inhabitancy. That is one way to get a title. 2, negotiation. Somebody gave it to you in a treaty. 3, conquest. If you look at the whole world and the borders of the world, they were settled in one of these ways. I said, now when you look at America, I basically see that the American Indians get 1 check mark. They were there first. But they were also raiding and conquering each other, and then comes the white man that conquers them. So the conquest check goes to the white man. So it's a dispute. I said, but now let's apply it to Israel. The Jews were there first. Check. They got the land assigned to them by the UN after World War II. Check. They fought at least 3 wars, 48, 67, 73. They've held the land by conquest. Check. No other country has as clear a title because it checks all three boxes.
Yeah.
But here's the big one. The Bible is our deed.
Well,
Hello.
I wasn't even me. I was giving a. You're right. I mean, I was giving a completely secular account. Let's add that one.
Yeah.
that's four.
And
When
my
let's call that the God checkbox.
Yeah.
Here's mine. My family name is David, and I wanted to sue the whole damn international community. That's my city, Jerusalem. I own it. I own Jerusalem. My family name is David. Kiss my butt. Really?
Love it.
Really?
Yeah.
When's this film release, and where can people go to see it? That's
Yeah,
the
so
most
it's in
important thing.
theaters just 2 days. So not October 7th, October 6th and October 8th. So the 2 days alongside October 7th. It'll be in about 400 theaters. And so if you go on the website, you just put in your zip code, boom, all the theaters around you will come up.
Okay.
So see it in the theater if you can. But the very next day, October 9th.
I want to say it's beautifully shot, and you should see it in the cinema because it is beautiful.
It's very.
I make
well
it for the theater. I mean, and we also have. We could tell you, and it'll bring us to tears about the guy who did our music for this film, because we hired this guy Richard Friedman. He's actually a very good friend of Dennis Prager. His wife works for Dennis Prager. He's a brilliant composer. We hire him, and 7 days later, he has a heart attack. And he's in the hospital. So he has a sound guy who's an Academy Award winning guy. So the two of them are putting music into our film from the hospital room.
Wow.
Right? And he completes the job. And then what is it? 3 days after he finishes it, he dies. So talk about
That's
the fact
amazing.
that there's a kind of a spiritual element, even in the composition of it. But anyway, streaming on October 9th and DVDs. It's going to be on Salem now, which is the Salem platform. It'll be on Rumble. So on Rumble, you can just basically click and buy it. And we're exploring a bunch of other platforms as well. We're going to make it really easy for people to see it. See it in the theater if you can, but these days a lot of people like to watch at home, and that's fine too.
I'm going to say two things. One, I believe, and Debbie said it outside, but I just wanted to say this because I didn't get to say it in the episode. This film really feels, and I believe in my heart of hearts, that it's God-led. It's not a typical film. There's an energy behind it, and you just have to see it to understand what I'm saying. Once you see it, you'll understand what I'm saying. This movie, and I don't. You agree, right, Debbie?
I mean,
I co-sign.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a film that God produced. This film.
I'm talking about it
You have
all
to
the
give 'em
time,
10
and
points on
I
back end.
sometimes have like a little difficulty, which is true of I think really good films, right? If you were someone were to ask you like, what's the Shawshank Redemption about, right? You're going to say, well, it's about friendship. Well, it's about prisons, but you're not even beginning to do justice to
Right.
it
That's a
because
great
you're
movie.
talking about the film. You're not actually talking about the experience of the film itself.
Right.
Right.
And ultimately, you want in a film it to take on that life of its own, where there's that added X factor. And I think this film does have it, and we feel it.
I think it does too.
And both movies are Shawshank is about hope. And
It's
so
about
your
hope,
film.
redemption, and you know, when we made this film, a lot of my films, people jokingly say they're horror films because you leave the film and you're a little dazed. You're like, oh my God, the stolen election. Will we ever have like another election in this country? Are we like done for? So that you will have that feeling. This film has some of those low points, but it also has high points, which I think is very congruent with where our culture is now. People are looking for a way out and a way forward.
I felt more hopeful after seeing it. And then the other thing,
Yeah.
and then I'll stop talking. Are you concerned with it? Because you know you're going to get backlash for this film because it's pro-Bible, pro-Israel. Are you prepared for that? Are you worried about it?
I'm not worried about it.
Good. I'm not worried about it.
My
either.
philosophy is this is what in the Reagan years we call supply side economics. And what I mean by that is for my books and my films, I come up with an idea. I test it to see if it is current with what's going on in the world. Because we, you know, frankly, if you, in today's culture, you have to surf on the wave. Right? If someone were to make a great film right now and the film was, let's say, about, you know, Afghanistan or about China, it would sink like a stone. So I do subject my work to like, is this relevant to our moment today? And then I ask, is the central idea of it like interesting to me? Not to anyone else, just to me. And then if I like that, I'm going to go for it. And I'm in complete indifference to anything else. When I made my first film on Obama, I would go literally to potential, you know, funders, investors, and I would say, I'm going to make a film. They're like, what's the film about? I'm like, it's about how Obama is an anti-colonialist. They were like, seriously? You're going to put a film like this in the theater? Nobody even knows what anti-colonialism is. And to the degree that they even know, they think it's a good thing because America used to be a colony of the British. So how are you going to explain this rather arcane third world concept? And I'm like, I don't care. It's my job to do that. And if I do it well, I think the film will catch on, and it did catch on, and launched my whole documentary film career because it was the second most successful documentary ever made after Fahrenheit 9/11. So I wouldn't be in the film business if I didn't hit a home run out the gate. But Debbie and I have talked about this, and we do think this is, in a sense, our most profound film.
I think it is too. It's a very uplifting film for Americans to see, to remember who we are and why we are that.
This is it. And in a way, it goes even beyond that because we're saying, look, in the big scheme of things, we don't know what's going to happen to America. But what we do know is we all have a soul. And the line
Right.
between good and evil runs through every human heart. And it is this moral choice that we all have to make individually. And ultimately, I think we all believe our spiritual judgment is based on that. It's not what did your country decide, it's what did you decide? Whose side were you on?
Right.
And this film wants to put that question like front and center. So when people go, in fact, yesterday we were talking to some guy who's like, well, Israel is like way over there, I'm over here. We're like, well, yes, geographically you're right, but the issues and the moral choices that come out of Jerusalem are right in front of you every single day.
Every day.
And without that, by the way, we would, our country is built on these two pillars. You remove one pillar, Jerusalem, there's no Western civilization left.
No. They're getting everybody to remove their own source of life. But anyway, well, I think we're going to cap it.
That was amazing.
And I like that we cap it on that. Everybody's being trained to kill off their own source.
And
And
pick
we
a
have
side.
to fight that. We have to fight that because without our source, we won't stand.
And if you're interested in the stuff we've been talking about, you're going to find this film mesmerizing.
it's gonna
so
it's
it's the
gonna give you
dragons.
hope. It's going to uplift you, and it is beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Thank you.
You
The
did a
Dragon's
great
Prophecy.
job.
You
Yes,
really
the dragonsprophecyfilm.com. That's it. And by the way, movie tickets, buy them on the website.
Okay.
You can't go to the theater and buy it right there. You have to buy them off the website. We've done these theatrical buyouts, which means we buy every seat.
Oh, gotcha.
And it's worked for us. We know how to do it, and it's in select theaters. So if you can't find it near you, no problem. Just sign up for streaming and order your DVDs, and you're going to be fine.
I'm laughing a little to myself because I talk about this movie gives me hope and proof of God, but it's like the dragon's prophecy and Satan is real and all these really scary, terrifying things.
Well, people want to forget that.
But you can't forget it. You have
We're
to.
in
You
a
have
war,
to face it.
people.
We are.
Come
Choose
on,
a
we
side.
got to win. Wake up, we got to win.
Which way,
Damn it.
Western man?
Huh?
Which way, Western?
That's it. Yeah.
So you see, my patience is running thin.
That's our end song.
In
in
this
case you can-
synthetic world we're living in.
Dinesh, thank you very much.
Love you all. Thank you, Dinesh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you see,